All right, guys, so this is the final part of the landscape painting in watercolor. So what I have here is all of the basic layers are in. Now we're at the point where I feel confident enough where I can add the details. So when you're doing details, what you need is your small brushes. So you want to collect the brushes that are the tiniest. So I'm going to use this one, even this little guy. You're going to do very, very detailed work. And now is when you can actually use a lot of just the pigments and not the washes. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with this little brush, and I'm going to start down here at the sidewalk. So I'm going to look at the sidewalk and see what areas I need to improve on. So I'm looking here and I'm seeing that my sidewalk is very peachy, where the one here is very white. So I'm going to put in the highlights for my sidewalk then. Okay, so this is painting in the white areas. Then I dip a little water in there. And then I'm going to go in the direction of the sidewalk. So it's horizontal, so I'm going to paint horizontally. Okay, it is going to pick up the paint that's already on there. It's not like it's going to go over top like acrylic. So it does pick up that paint. I'm going to repeat that process over and over and over. So this is me dipping into the white again. And I'm going to gently bring this into my sidewalk. Okay, and again, a little bit of water. I'm not going to go through every single element because this is time consuming. So the entire point of this is to add those tiny details that make it look interesting. So for example, too, on my sidewalks are rough. I don't want to give the impression that they're not. So I'm going to take a brush. I'm going to mix gray. Okay, so here we go. I'm not going to use a lot of water. I just want it to be a little bit wet enough so I can mix the color that I need. Okay, as per usual, you should have your tester sheet nearby so that you can make sure that you've got the right color. I need a little warmth in that. Okay, keep testing until you get what you want. Okay, so I think that's about right. Maybe a little more white in there. Okay, and the key here is we are going to dry brush. So you want to get out as much as the water as you can and then very roughly go over the sidewalk again. Okay, I am just like the dry brushing technique. I am not trying to meld it in. I want to play off of the roughness of the paper, and then I'm going to add it in later. So if you're seeing this, it's probably going to look a little bit rough. Okay, now it's down. What I'm going to do, you clean that brush off. I'm going to rinse it. I don't want too much water in it. And then I'm just going to gently use the brush to smooth it out. Okay, so I'm not making it a wash. I'm not putting so much water on it that it disappears and I'm losing all the texture. What I am doing is just putting enough water on it so I can get the paint to move. And then I'm just going back and forth and trying to smooth it out enough so it doesn't look globby. Okay. So just like everything else, you're going to move from section to section. You don't want to stop too much in one area. And this is the area too where you're going to do that tiny little work. So I've just added a little bit of blue to this rock. And I'm just using the smallest brush I have to meld it into the gray. So it's just going to be the tiniest bit of blue. Probably a good example of this is going to be back here, so in the back area where the trees are. I'm going to use this mix. So I've created a black and a brown that go together. So this is like a really dark color. What I want to do is add in the corners, so like right here, areas of very extreme dark. So I'm just going to use the tip of my brush and I'm just going to dab it to create those areas. Okay, so what we're trying to do is add areas of high contrast. So that means very dark or very light. In those areas of high contrast, they give it a little bit of form. Okay. And the big thing is when you're using these darks, you use them sparingly. Okay, you don't use a lot all at once. You just use a little bit. Okay, if you're looking, I'm just adding those little darks. And by doing that, I'm hoping to create some contrast. So same thing up here. You can see the branches through the tree. Obviously, I'm not going to start painting in crazy branches. But I do want just a little, and the side of my brush allows for a very narrow line. And I'm just going to put them here and there. So I don't want the entire thing to get carried away. Okay, so right now I'm actually running low on this color, so I'm going to mix more of it. Brown and black. I don't want just flat out black unless it's like right here. Flat out black is a little too strong for what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so hopefully this is still recording. My computer just went down for a minute. All right, so if you're looking, I am still adding those tiny little areas of black. Okay, I am right now using a little bit of water to just smooth them out so that they look more natural. At that point, what I'm going to do as well is look for those bright areas that have the lightest version of light. So if you look, there's a little tree that has a lot of bright yellow leaves. I'm going to add that in too. Okay. And then the last part is there's areas up here that obviously have a little bit of red and they go to orange. Now I want to make sure that I'm hitting those colors properly. So I'm going to add red here in this orange. I'm going to make it very reddish orange. Okay, and then I'm just going to you're always trying to maintain that little kind of rough texture because leaves are not smooth. Like they don't come across as one smooth line. You have to keep working them. You have to make them look organic. Okay, and so once that's done, again, I just get a little bit of water, meld it in so it's not just a completely harsh transition, and just do that. Now, like I said, this is the last stop before you're done. So this is where you're allowed to use dark colors. This is where you're allowed to add your details. So right here, I'm using the black because this is probably one of the only areas in the entire painting where there is black. This bush is so dark. So I'm just going to add that in. Okay, there's another thing though. This bush is actually hiding a fence. So I'm going to add the little lines for the fence in here like this. I'm going to follow the curve of the street. And then also here, I'm going to add a little bit of black for this shadow right here. Oh, that is not black, that is white. Okay. Okay. So the very, very last part when you're doing this are going to be those leaves. So if you look, there's little yellow orange leaves everywhere. So I'm going to take this orange that I've created, and I'm not going to add a lot of them, but I'm just going to add one or two so that people know that there are little leaves there. And make sure that you add them in a variety of colors. Okay. I'm going to, like this obviously would take a long time, I'm just going to go through every single area and add those when needed. And if you look in the background there's a big area that has pretty much a lot of leaves, and I'm just going to do this. So I'm going to stipple to create those leaves in that back area like that. Use a little bit of the colors I've used in the other areas, even if they're not as predominant as they are back there. Okay, and then right now I'm using a little bit of dry brushing to give the leaves that rough effect. Okay, so all in all, that is how you do it. Now for the rest of the time, what I would do is I would keep going in and adding highlights and taking away things. All right, so if you're looking here, I'm working on the rock. I'm just adding some highlights to the rock. Okay, there as well. And then down here, it's more gray than anything else. So I'm going to make sure I have a gray. And then I'm going to add that gray in. Okay, I'm not going to paint the entire thing because it isn't that dark. But I do want to get that rough texture. So I'm going to dry brush a little bit. Like if you look, I'm scrubbing my brush on the rock. And that's because I'm going for that rougher texture. I want to make sure that I'm capitalizing off of that. Okay. All right. So as you're looking at this, again, always keep in mind that there's always something to add, always something to take away. The very, very last layer that you're doing is all about adding those tiny, tiny details. You can even do like the grass. I'm just dry brushing some grass on here right now. Okay, and the cool part is you take as much as you need and you leave behind whatever you don't. If there's things in the picture that you don't like, you don't have to include them. You're controlling the environment here. Okay, so this is a bit of a long video. It's about 20 minutes because you're watching me work. But that is about it. Please remember that the last part is all detailed work, tiny little dry brushing. And then at that point, it should take you a while. And when you're done, you call it. You are officially finished when you look at your image and you say, that's it. I don't want to work on it anymore. I'm happy with what I see.